Okay. So we have a recording in progress, and the Zoom tutorials continue. Welcome everybody, trustees, staff, and public to our first meeting. It's good to see you to continue our important work and mission. We hope that your family and your friends and everybody in your community is well. I begin by reconfirming our commitment to racial equity and to the principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion more broadly. The library is formally committed to becoming an anti-racist organization in response to systemic racism, inequity, and injustice prevalent in our society. We acknowledge also that the Boston Public Library's Central Library stands on land that was once a water-based ecosystem, providing sustenance for the indigenous Massachusetts people, and is a place which has long served as a site of meetings and exchange among nations. We are committed to land acknowledgement for all locations as we operate, and we reaffirm this commitment to set the context for our planning, deliberations, and public engagement so that they take place from the spirit of welcome and respect found in our motto, free to all. So now we're going to have the roll call of trustees.
Linda Dorsina-Fori, I know that you are in, but I need you to accept the promotion in order to vote that Jay sent to you, just so you can keep a lookout for that. Okay, I'm just going to read last names to go through the list as efficiently as possible. Arano Ortiz.
Here.
Arenas.
Here.
Asim.
Present.
Al.
Here.
Furman.
Here.
Bradley. Cronin.
Here.
Douglas.
Here.
Dorsina-Fori.
Here.
Thank you, Linda. Tyler. Hawkins will be late. Lenahan.
Here.
Rush.
Good morning. Here.
Tyler. And Westra.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Has everybody, we've sent out for the review and approval of the minutes. May I have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. And we need a roll call vote for that again.
Arano Ortiz.
Yes.
Arenas.
Yes.
Asim.
Yes.
Al.
Yes.
Furman.
Yes.
Bradley, have you joined yet? Cronin.
Yes.
Douglas.
Yes.
Dorsina-Fori.
Yes.
Lenahan.
Yes.
Rush.
Yes.
And Westra.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, so thank you. Again, I wish that we were together chatting over some coffee, exchanging fist bumps. But I do have some exciting updates to share with you. As you know, we meet during the summer. We've had some meetings. And in May, we formed 2 new committees. We formed the Strategic Community Engagement Committee, and they held an orientation on June 24th. Here's a list of the members, which is also available on the website. And what you can see is that they represent our different neighborhoods, ethnicities, interests. And the good news is that they bring a rich network of people, influence, interests, and practices to the BPL. Now, all of them left the meeting as ambassadors, advocates, and collaborators from that orientation. And the results of their actions are already bearing fruit. An example of the new community engagement was initiated by one of the members, Dayron Miles. He lives in the South End. He's on the board of the American Repertory Theater well, actually, I mean, sorry, he's a senior leader at the American Repertory Theater. And Dayron worked with Michael Colford and Angela Vizaga, and they selected books for adults and children to accompany an experience that's going on at the Arnold Arboretum, that the ART. It's a combination of theatrical performances, pop-up meditations that's free. And with this, working with Angela and Michael, what's been happening is that the books are available. They're being promoted on the ART website. And we've had buses leave from a couple of the libraries. So it's been a great start. It's only the beginning. The Community Engagement Committee is going to meet on the October 8th for their first full meeting. So we begin these committees, these new committees, with an orientation. And our next committee that's going to have their orientation, which is this week, is a reformulation of the Collections Committee. And you can see the list of people there, which is also listed on our website. So we're going to meet, and we expect that this committee, taking a look at the many treasures that exist in the library, will be equally as engaged and innovative as our strategic committee. So those are two updates that I'm really excited to share. As you know, many of the trustees are involved, and you'll be hearing more about these committees as they form subcommittees and take their activities into the neighborhood. Any comments or questions before we go to? So, although we're meeting on Zoom, I'm pleased if you've been by the library, you know that it's alive with activity. So let's now turn to the president's report. David?
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Good morning, trustees. We thought it would be important to hear from the field first for an update on what has been happening in reality since we began this stage of our reopening process in June and July, which is only a short 3 months ago. So I'm going to ask Michael Colford to give you some highlights of both what has been happening and what is planned for the balance of the fiscal year ahead. Michael.
Yes, thank you, David, and good morning, trustees.
Interrupt real quick. I just wanted to make note that we did have a few trustees that joined the meeting that weren't part of the roll call. They just got a little jumbled in the, we have John Heiler and Rep. Tyler as well is on the call.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning, trustees. At the Finance and Audit Committee last week, I brought forward many of the program partners that we're going to be working with in the coming year to approve contracts in anything over $10,000. So it's a great slate, and we thought it would be great to share with the full trustees. But I'm going to start with some of the amazing work that our youth programs have been working on for the summer. Because they're always very active in the summer, and we reopened in June. To date, we have not initiated any in-person indoor programming for children, and we don't plan on doing that for the foreseeable future. That's a very tricky kind of thing to tackle because children can't be vaccinated. But we are doing a very robust amount of virtual and outdoor programming. So for our Future Readers Club, which is our early literacy initiative funded through generous donations through the Boston Public Library Fund, we've been doing a slate of virtual story times, and out in the branches, many branches that have outdoor spaces and have adjacent parks are doing a lot of outdoor story times. They're really wonderful to see and very well attended. We partner with Countdown to Kindergarten. We have a long-term partnership with Boston Public Schools Countdown to Kindergarten, which continued this year at 16 branches. Children about to enter kindergarten received a t-shirt and a backpack with school supplies at this event celebrating school readiness. These events are the culmination of the efforts of 28 local organizations that implement a school readiness campaign that helps families participate actively in their children's education right from the start. So those happen outdoors at 16 branches. We also, the Future Readers Club effort funded kindergarten camps. This was our second year of kindergarten camp, and it was a great success with 6 sessions held virtually on Facebook Live with a total of over 1,400 viewers. The camp focuses on school readiness and celebrates the beginning of each participant's formal academic experience. Kindergarten camp is the final program in our Future Readers Club for this summer, and that was a great success as well. We returned with Read Your Way to Fenway this year. We had a COVID-related pause in 2020. We were delighted to receive a phone call telling us that Read Your Way to Fenway would be happening in 2021. This program started in 1995 and encourages kids 5 to 17 to read 3 books and write a brief essay about their favorite. While we had a smaller turnout than the pre-COVID era, we still had nearly 300 participants submit essays, and 6 lucky winners were honored on an on-field ceremony before the game, even despite the storm delay from a Sunday to a Monday, so that was great. The Children's Library here at Central Library started the summer offering primarily with passive programs in the courtyard, including sensory play kits and STEM activity kits that children and caregivers could use in their own small groups. And then they moved to larger outdoor story times and children's concerts in Copley Square in conjunction with the farmers market. As the summer progressed, we started shifting many of our Zoom Future Readers Club early literacy programs into the courtyard. And now we have courtyard programming like family dance parties and Mother Goose on the Loose at least once a day, Monday through Thursday. Some of their programming that is well suited to Zoom's format has continued there, such as their weekly tween time and their new parents group, where parents of very young children are encouraged to build community while also being connected to pediatricians, experts in baby sign language, and other community groups and practitioners who work with very young children. Then in partnership with the Boston Parks and Recreation Department and through a grant from the Highland Street Foundation received through the BPL fund, the Boston Public Library presented a series of 10 wordless outdoor story walks beginning in August 2021. Activity kits were available at local branch libraries to accompany the story, making this a safe and healthy outdoor literacy activity for the children and families of Boston. Now going forward for youth, where we just launched our homework assistance program that's taking place in person at 16 branches and virtually as well. And the Boston Teachers Union is also providing homework help in most branches as well to coincide. So we're excited to get homework assistance program back in the branches in person. Moving to adult programming, we have a very strong slate of our marquee speaker series through the Lowell Lecture Series, which will be still retaining the Repairing America theme, but kind of evolving it to a more of a renewal, joy and renewal focus. That will kick off in the winter, spring. We received a significant grant through the fund from the Nord Family Foundation to do some high-profile author talks, which we're very excited about. Those are starting this month. And through the generosity of the city and Mayor Janey's Joy agenda, we received funding to do programs to inspire joy. We've done the ice cream trucks, went to every single location and gave away free ice cream. And this past weekend, we had Maria of Sesame Street come and speak in celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month and through the Joy agenda, which in a conversation with David, which was a lot of fun. Tech Goes Home, which you'll see represented in this photograph. We're doing 3 different focuses for Tech Goes Home. And as you may recall, Tech Goes Home is a basic computer skills class where participants must complete a certain number of hours and then they receive a laptop and internet access. The great thing about the pandemic is we were able to work with Tech Goes Home so that we would provide the technology to the participants before they took the classes. This is a photo, obviously, from before the pandemic, from the Eggleston Branch Library with our recipients of the Tech Goes Home laptops, which is great. If we look at the next slide, it was quite challenging to get people their laptops beforehand. We would meet them on the street. We had one great story of our community learning supervisor on the street talking to a woman on the 2nd floor out her window and helping her get her laptop set up. Because as you might imagine, if you're not familiar with technology, it's not that easy to set up a laptop for the first time. And then in the last slide, this just shows you an image of how they were doing Tech Goes Home virtually and the wide assortment of people that took the class. Going forward, we'll still be doing a large chunk of the standard Tech Goes Home. We also are working very specifically with a large grant from the returning citizens through the New Urban Mechanics through the returning citizens. And we're also using some of our youth funding to do a series of early literacy Tech Goes Home programs, which is great. We also got a great grant from the Highland Street Foundation to do various work around ESL support. We're working with 3 organizations, the New England Blacks in Philanthropy, who offer G-Code, a 6-week program to women of color at which students learned how to build a web application, gained career insight from tech professionals, obtained mentors, and determined if a journey into the tech industry is their right fit. That took place over the summer in person, and that was a wonderful program. We served 20 students at that. We're working with the Boston Chinatown Neighborhood Center through its Adult Education and Workforce Initiatives program. They create pathways to self-sufficiency and success for adult immigrants with limited English proficiency in the Boston area. And then we'll also be working with the Jewish Vocational Services. We'll partner with their English for Advancement program to provide a series of employment-focused workshops, office hour sessions, and individualized coaching for individuals enrolled in our own ESOL services. And then the last 2 I'll talk about. We can go to the next slide. We'll be working again with Company One, which is a theater production company in Boston. They have done 2 full theatrical productions at the Boston Public Library. This first one is an image from Peerless, and the next photo is an image from Wolf Play. We are going to be doing a 3rd in-person theatrical production in the April-May timeframe called Black Superhero Magic Mama, which is a very profound and moving, but also joyful play that deals with a mother struggling with the death of her son after being shot by the police. And she moves into this fantasy world around thinking she is a avenging superhero. And it's really quite a remarkable play. We also, if we go to the next slide, we also work with them to do a lot of branch outreach and education. This was a kickoff event at the Central Library called their Playwriting Boot Camp. And we plan to do that this year as well as a speaker series. They did their first Lowell lecture speaker last year with a panel of theatrical folk that was very popular. And then the last organization I want to talk about is Grub Street. We do 2 major programs with 3 major programs with Grub Street. If you can go back, Jay, sorry. We do Right Down the Street, which is a writing group for adults. And then we do the Young Adult Writers Program that is focused on teens that we've been working, which has been very successful, that we've been working with the Eggleston branch community, the Mattapan branch community, and the Roxbury branch community. You can see a group of very happy YAWP actually teens who completed their class. And in the next slide, they did meet virtually last year, and they sent out writing kits that they mailed to all the participants, which was really wonderful, so that the teens could work on their writing from home. They're remaining virtual for the fall and into the early winter, and they hope in 2022 to be able to do some in-person workshops again, and to have some of the teens do a showcase about some of the work they've written. And then the last work we do with Grub Street is with our community learning department. They've worked with Grub Street to offer a remote memoir instruction course to older patrons in East Boston, with the resulting narratives being added to a collection of Eastie stories hosted by Northeastern University and accessible through Digital Commonwealth. And the participants will also receive their works in print. And this year, the team will host smaller scale personal narrative workshops in partnership with Grub Street as a way of providing creative space for community members in Roxbury and the South End to share their personal histories. So as you can see, we're quite busy. We have some really wonderful partnerships. We're really focusing our work on vulnerable populations, to provide diversity and equity and really reach a wide swath of people throughout all of our neighborhoods. And I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Great update.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael. That was really impressive sense of what is taking place and what will take place as we return to a fuller slate of in-person and virtual services, although as I'll share in a moment, we have to move slowly, deliberately, and cautiously for a number of reasons on that front. At this point, I would like to turn to 3 votes that are before the trustees today, and these relate in each case to our relationship with the Boston Public Library Fund. The fund is now, I think, in year 3 of its reconception and reimagination and relaunch. And one of the strategic goals set by the trustees was to ensure that we formalize the relationship between the library, the city, and our fundraising affiliates, of which the Boston Public Library Fund is the primary. And so we're pleased to be joined today by Paula Seki, who is the executive director of the fund. And I am pleased to, on the fund's behalf and on the library's behalf, present to you for approval in reverse order, actually, the formal memorandum of understanding that will govern expectations between the library and the fund. This has been vetted by the City of Boston and will go through one final approval as to form by Corporation Council pending your vote. But 2 other very important documents that enshrine in our paper and memorialize are the gift acceptance policy for the fund and the named giving policy for the fund. In both cases, these clarify what the fund is allowed to do, but in each case, continue to subordinate decisions as appropriate to the trustees of the library. So you will see that the language of these 2 votes really is focused on the trustees acknowledging receipt of these policy documents, but equally consenting to support and collaborate on their implementation. And so the gift acceptance policy, which was voted and approved by the fund board in September of 2020, provides guidance and standards for evaluating when and whether or not to accept any specific gift. There may indeed be some circumstances where refusing a potential gift is actually in the best interests, whether that's due to hidden costs or potential harm to reputation, etc. The policy as written provides flexibility in evaluating potential gifts and also allows for future amendments to the policy as we grow the fund's planned giving efforts. And just as a note, I couldn't be happier to see a complete portfolio of fundraising and development programs and efforts coming to life under the new leadership at the fund. Then with respect to the named giving policy, this too was voted and approved by the fund's board in September of 2020. And as we grow giving to the fund, naming rights become an important part of conversations with higher end and larger amount donors. This policy gives us a clear way to communicate with potential donors what options may be available to them, but always ensure that they are consistent and equitable, and appropriate recognition and stewardship is given for generous support, again, consistent with the mission of our organizations. And as I mentioned a moment ago, continuing to ensure, just as we did back in the very early days, naming Bates Hall for Joshua Bates and his early gift, that we remain true to the spirit of where philanthropic support is both invited and welcome as part of the library's mission. And so, Madam Chairperson, I would turn to you to allow these votes to move forward procedurally.
Yes, I would like to really, the clarity of these, the memorandum of understanding, all the policies, and the extraordinary work by Jeff and by Paula and that whole staff has taken us to a new level. And I endorse everything that David has shared with you, and there's so many more details below this, but let me call, we need a vote on these, and we have to, do we vote on them together, or what's the status? Pamela?
Separately.
Pardon?
I have questions though.
You have questions? Yes.
Yeah, so do we need to make a motion and open for questions? So I make a motion.
So moved.
Thank you.
So,
Second.
yeah, so, thank you. So, I have questions on the naming specifically, and it's more regarding, there is a naming process that trustees have written out, which also goes through city council. There is a different process that we follow. I'm just trying to understand, how do the two blend?
In the case of a moderate sized donation, I'll just give an example to try and illustrate a moderate sized donation. A small plaque might be implemented in the appropriate place, such as we have done within the Ray Room, the children's room here at the Central Library, to recognize moderate but substantial gifts. The trustees retain ownership of the process for all naming opportunities. These documents really give us a tool to communicate with potential donors as to how this would work. And in the case of the most formal process, when it comes to naming entire buildings, anything that administration and the fund may wish to do with a donor would still have to come by before the trustees, and in some cases have the consent of city council, as you have pointed out. So nothing in either of these documents removes or delegates or subordinates what the trustees have under the business of naming responsibility.
So the processes, as you've described, are in alignment.
Yes.
All right, because I mean, it doesn't call that out in here, so that's why I was asking. So I didn't know if the intent was to use this as a replacement, because but thank you for the clarification.
And there is a section in the name giving policy that references the fact that nothing in the policy itself, which is it's the fund's policy, precludes the BPL and the BPL board from exercising its responsibilities too.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
What are your other questions about this?
That was it for me. I mean, I see that it is a collaborative effort. It calls out that in the policy. So it's not that the fund, the fund just names, so it's in collaboration with this board. So I appreciate that. That was my only question. I don't know if anybody else had any questions.
I just have a question, but it's just I just want to say this out loud to make sure that I'm understanding and reading all these materials correctly, that the fund itself doesn't have any authority to agree to name any asset of the library, for any reason whatsoever, that ultimately any naming has to come before a vote to the trustees. I just want to clarify that that's the end result of this vote.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine the trustees approving a specific program, and then the details would fall in alignment of that. But in principle, you are correct that absent trustee direction, the fund cannot, in its own right, as a result of this policy, simply go name new things.
Or in any way bind the trustees.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Important.
Right, would you like to call for a vote?
Which one are we voting on first?
So saying, do you want to make a motion?
There's a motion on the floor and my question to you, Pamela, in terms of the protocol, do we do these one by one or?
Yes,
Okay, so we can go in the order of your motion. Evelyn please repeat that again.
Yeah, the motion was to open for questions, but we can make a motion to vote. But I have another question. Sorry. And sorry, because I'm scared. I don't see, I mean, because I'm gonna go with Cheryl. So we're not, it seems to be a collaboration. I think that we have a final say in this, but you know, is there any criteria in terms of what the fund goes through to accept a name, you know, or is it just a matter of I wrote a check for $5 million and I can just, you know, there's no regards to the person? Because I want to say, you know, I want to make sure that we have a regard to the person, because I don't want just about anybody to just feel free to write a check and be named.
I think that's a key part of it. Go ahead, David.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, I mean, this, in the gift acceptance policy, it's pretty clear that there may be individuals or entities from whom we would not want to choose to accept a gift, no matter how large. And that is clearly articulated in there.
Yeah,
We
it talks
have
about
seen,
background.
we have seen in the press of the last several years, places like some of our educational institutions in the city have been faced with realizing that they had accepted donations from entities that they might not otherwise have done so. And so this policy is very clear that we have the grounds to not accept such gifts and that there should be a review process.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so I can make a motion for a vote if you want me to do that.
Yes, please.
Motion for a vote.
Moved.
Second.
Second, Zamala.
Second.
Right. Roll call,
All
Miss
right.
Pamela.
Roll call.
name calling. And I just want to make it known that Ben Bradley also joined a while back while you were presenting, shortly after I made the other announcement. Arana Ortiz,
Yes.
Arenas,
Yes.
Asim,
Yes.
Ball,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Bradley,
Yes.
Cronin,
Yes,
Douglas,
Yes.
Josina Fori,
Yes.
Tyler. John, I know you're on. All right. Hawkins, Linehan,
Yes.
Rush,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
and Westra.
Yes.
So moved. If I may make a note that I was having trouble putting the meeting materials on our website, I will do so immediately following this. I was having a problem with the PDF, so I apologize to the public for not having it up prior.
Thank you.
Okay, Pam, I just got reset, so,
Gotcha.
now,
How would
as a
you-
panelist,
Would you
So
like to
yes.
vote, John? Yes. here we
yes,
go. Get
please,
you in.
definitely,
Thank you, John. Would you like
yes.
to go on to the second vote, Priscilla?
We need a motion for that?
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
Great. Arana Ortiz,
Yes.
Arenas,
Yes.
Asim,
Yes.
Bal,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Bradley,
Yes.
Cronin,
yes,
Douglas,
Yes.
Josina Fori,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes,
Linehan,
Yes.
Rush,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
and Westra.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And if you'd like to move on to the last one, which would be for the memorandum of understanding between the BPL and the fund.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
second,
All right.
Yes.
Arenas,
Yes.
Asim,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Bradley,
Yes.
Cronin,
yes,
Douglas,
Yes.
Lucina Fori,
Yes.
Tyler,
yes,
Linehan,
Yes.
Rush,
yes,
Tyler,
Yes.
and Westrock.
Yes.
So moved.
Great, thank you. So my enthusiasm for the progress that we've made in this area preceded our open discussion. And one of the things that I was so enthusiastic about is one, the clarity of our relationship, the definition, and many of the projects that you heard Michael and discuss that are happening in the community were funded because of the BPL fund. And in our strategic roadmap, as in our roadmap, as you know, one of the key things that's going to be funded is this social, being able to have a social worker at the library. So thank you, Paula, thank you, Jeff, and thank you, BPL Fund, for your commitment and your collaboration and the clarity of this new relationship, or this renewed relationship with the library. It's going to really allow us to meet our mission. David?
Thank you. And I just want to acknowledge the early work of the Committee on Governance, Development and Nominating under John Heiler that reviewed a variety of earlier versions of these documents and drafts. And so I think we're not only putting our relationship on a good footing, but we're already seeing the benefits with the inbound donations that are coming from private individuals, from corporations, from foundations, and many of the programs indeed that our chair has just referenced are funded directly by these funds across the system. And it's very important that it's the entirety of the system, the central library, the branches, special collections, the ongoing service work is all being supported by the fund's work. So I will briefly now run through a number of additional updates. The summer utilization numbers continue to be headed in a really good direction, and we see, on the order of 500,000 transactions a month for July and August in particular. Which is the reach count of visits to locations, books checked out, computer sessions used, program attendance, and so forth. And so, we're nowhere near our FY19 numbers, but we're very much headed in the right direction, which has really been great to see. And certainly I was here for hosting one of the programs at the Central Library, Sonia Manzano, Maria from Sesame Street, which was amazing. And certainly walking around the Central Library, it was great to see really high utilization, which we hadn't seen. As has been documented in email, the library experienced a cybersecurity incident in late August. This effectively took many of our technology-based services offline for a 6 to 7 day period. I will just now report out that we had no evidence that any patron or staff personal information was taken from the system. We have no evidence that this was the result of any staff person doing anything wrong. And there will be a more detailed briefing in executive session following this meeting for the trustees. We were able to restore operations the following Tuesday, Wednesday, and we were able to restore with minimal data loss. And the majority of documents that were lost were the result of improperly being stored and not on systems that were being backed up. But it was very strange and surreal to go old school and be using a paper mechanism to check books out during this time frame. I can take a couple of more general comments on this at this time, but the detailed questions will hold for executive session. But really, this can happen to any institution. We have made steps to improve our security posture, and we remain proud that through some good previous technology choices, some pretty clever and resilient IT staff, and a decent amount of luck that this was not actually worse than it turned out to be. Although if you were a person trying to access our services using technology or online during this period, our apologies go out to those patrons as we worked through this problem.
David, maybe this is a question for executive session, but do we know the party responsible for this?
As we are engaged in an open law enforcement investigation, I'm not able to comment on that publicly at this time.
I'll comment on the prior point. I was there on Saturday for Sonia Manzano's, and it was a great chat. I also read the book. I could definitely relate to the characters in the book as family members. So it was great. And what was amazing to me is the utilization at the library. It seemed like back to normal. And I think it's because the students are back in school. So I saw a lot of students in the library, but every room, every space, it was packed. It was great to see.
Yeah, it's not the exact same experience yet across all of the branches. Some are definitely busy, but some are definitely not. So just want to recognize that we're headed in the right direction as we have capacity to do so. But we're not all the way where we would like to be. Which brings us to my third point here is that I've misspelled this also, that we have we're still absolutely dealing with the reality of COVID-19 in our society. This means that our locations, mask wearing is required, and it is certainly causing somewhat of a burden on staff and our security team to remind patrons who are not as diligent about mask wearing to do so. So that certainly is creating a burden. And combined with the next item, which recognizes the number of vacancies among the staff, we do not have the capacity to offer everything we would normally be able to do yet. And so I just want to recognize that with the trustees, that we will move as deliberate and as quickly as it makes sense to do, but we have to do so based upon both the public health reality that we are still living in and working through, and also that we have about 20% of our workforce that is simply not there. And this is a result of the necessary position freeze and budget freeze from 2020, but equally the number of retirements and life choices that individual staff members have made about their careers and work-life balance, for example. And so we are actively hiring, and this is almost our number one priority right now, but there is only so fast we could actually go in terms of getting approvals for positions, checking the budget, getting positions posted, in most cases offering them as internal promotional opportunities first before they get posted externally to bring new capacity to the organization. So I want to recognize that on both of these points, the next several months will probably be driven by both the underlying COVID-19 continuing public health emergency and the pace at which we can fill our vacancies. However, work and projects and initiatives absolutely still continues. We completed late spring, early summer, the Courtyard Fountain, which looks fantastic. We were able to host the Concerts in the Courtyard series and have a fully functional courtyard. Outdoor spaces are our friends right now. That's what people really seem to crave. The Hyde Park branch reopened early summer. After almost a year of repairs, we are seeing across a number of our projects challenges around construction, labor, availability of contractors, and in some cases, deep supply issues that are delaying projects. We also had the Adams Street branch ribbon cutting in the summer, which is probably the major milestone for the library. The trustees were represented there by Trustee Linda Fori and Joyce Linehan and Joe Berman. Upcoming milestones. You will recall that we completed the Roxbury branch at Nubian Square. I am now using its full geographic name to refer to the branch out of respect for some members of the community's desire to recognize the Nubian Square name. But we opened the Roxbury branch at Nubian Square in the middle of COVID, and really were unable to give it a full in-person celebration. So coming up close to its anniversary, we are inviting you and the public to join us for what will now be an anniversary celebration, but really our first in-person celebration, the somewhat equivalent of a ribbon cutting. The Rosendale branch, we are all chomping at the bit to get it pushed across the finish line and open. It has experienced shelving delays, really as one of the major supply chain issues we've seen in the construction industry. And you unfortunately can't really open a branch library without shelves to put books on. So we're a little delayed, unfortunately, but the team is working aggressively to ensure this gets opened, hopefully not too much beyond the middle of Q4. And then just a note about future deep trustee briefings. Today we have administrative work to cover, some general updates, but we have two major topics that we would like to dedicate, hopefully, the November and January trustee meetings to. One is the YW Boston work, our work on racial equity. In combination, there has been work through the city's REAL training program and our own equity agenda and action plan. And so this will, in addition to our roadmap, carve out the work of the library for the next at least year to 2 years. The second topic, which seems to be missing from this slide, would be an update on the McKim master planning process and the resulting plan developed by the architects and community members who've been working on this for well over a year. So just a heads up that we absolutely have not forgotten about either of those topics, and they are central to ongoing work, and we will pick those up at a future meeting. So at this point, I will pause, take questions, and then allow the balance of the agenda to continue. The next slide is just a refresh of the overall capital projects, which we will brief on in much more detail at a future meeting as well. Thank you.
Thank you, David, and thank you for putting a placeholder on those very important conversations that we will have later. And I just want to say that with the equity work, that ties into the opening statement that we agreed on in May. And I know that that effort is moving forward. Any comments or questions from the trustees?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Ben.
David, on those 86 job openings that you mentioned, you said some of those had to do with life choices, as you put it. Do those life choices have anything to do with disagreement with library policy on for example, remote work?
Yeah.
Or are these individual choices that don't have anything to do with the library?
I think it's a mixture, honestly, to be certain. We certainly have had some individuals who have made a choice to either continue living outside of Boston, which once we return to in-person work no longer is possible under city regulation. And so the residency requirement comes into play, both for existing staff who fall under that requirement, as well as for new hires. That's one dimension of that. We've also had examples of individuals where a partner or spouse has gotten a job offer somewhere else, and they've made a decision as families or couples to move elsewhere. And so again, without the ability to support living outside of Boston or to support remote work, that is absolutely explains a couple of individuals. I think in the general course of retention and turnover challenges, there are always some individuals who reach conclusions that this is no longer the place that they wish to see their career continue in. I don't see an inordinate number of examples of that from exit interviews or other data that's presented to me. But I think in a cumulative effect, plus the new positions, like not all 86 of those are were prior vacancies. Some are new positions being funded by the fund or by the city. And just for a point of comparison, in normal times, we typically run with at least 30 vacancies. So that's, it's not like we have 86 that we suddenly have, but we typically run with about 30. It can get us into the 40s and 60s, which we don't like because it puts a burden on the rest of the staff to carry the weight. But I certainly have never seen it this high as a result of all of those cumulative effects. It's actually trending down from what it was earlier, and we're actually due to do another slice at the vacancies. We do that in a deep dive every 2 weeks as we continue to work through these.
And what is our policy on remote work?
There is none.
There is none.
There is none. As of, I don't have the date in front of me, but as of a date in June or a date in July, I forget which one it was, the city required all employees to return to in-person work. I mean, for example, there are situations where we're continuing to offer virtual programming, and so there are very limited number of bases where someone may be able to do part of their job briefly, but the baseline and the norm is that all work is done in person. The city has begun a analysis and a planning working group to look at where might there be flexibility that could be offered in an equitable fashion to employees. But I don't have any data from that process yet or know what its next steps will be.
I think it would be a good thing for the city to consider options because at least in the private sector, remote work is becoming a competitive advantage for companies. And,
absolutely. As long as we can, I think as long as we can come up with an equitable way of implementing flexibility, so we're not penalizing those whose work is 100% in person. Maybe there are different ways of offering flexibility, but that is policy work that will be led by the city, and we'll have opportunity to have input and comment.
Anyone else?
No, this is Evelyn. I just want to thank the library and the leadership and all the teams, everyone, because you throughout this pandemic you've pivoted and just make it work, getting innovative and everything. So thank you for your energy and your stamina. The Great Resignation, it's a lot of it's something that every company face, and you are facing it too. And I'm glad to hear that you're going through these reviews every 2 weeks and trying to get people in, because that would lessen the burden for the rest. So thank you for everything you do.
Thank you, Evelyn. I mean, everything that Michael or I has talked about, whether it's a great service or a great opportunity or a particular challenge, that is something we as a full staff are sharing. And so it's not my work. My job is to report on it, perhaps to lead on it, but really it's the work of the whole staff that brings these new services alive, keeps things running, and deals with the stresses of our current reality.
Thank you so much. That's a good example. Teamwork makes the dream work. Let's turn it to Evelyn for the Finance and Audit Committee report.
All right. And now with the numbers. So we had a review of the audited financials. I believe we have Matt on the phone.
Yes, hello.
Hello.
Jay, can you
Good
move-
morning, Matt. So Matt is it's from our audit firm. He did the review with us, and we're gonna do a summary of our audited financials that we will take for a vote to accept. So go ahead, Matt. Thank you so much. Good morning.
Good morning. I did not know I was actually gonna be doing this summary, so we'll pivot and transition to it. So again, Matthew Hunt from CLA, reporting here on the FY21 audit. So want to go over today sort of a basic overall summary of the audit and go over some of the key data, some of the key numbers from the financial statements, and then open it up for any questions. So without further ado, if we head to the next slide, just want to report that the audit work began in late July, which has been typical for the past several years. It's indicative of the fact that the finance and accounting department do a great job of closing the books in a timely fashion. You guys are always one of the first audits that we do every year. It's great. And all information was provided to us. There were no disagreements with management, and overall was a smooth audit process. So jumping ahead to the actual audit report itself, want to report on the auditor's opinion, which you find on pages 1 and 2 of the report. Happy to report that the opinion on the financial statements is an unmodified opinion. That is the best opinion available in an audit of a financial statement, and basically states that we believe, based on our audit, that the financial statements are free of any material misstatements. So then getting into some of the numbers, if you look at one of the more important pieces of the financial statements is your fund balance, just to sort of see where your financial position is at the end of the year. So starting off with your general funds, on page 20, you'll see that your overall fund balance increased about 320,000 or about 6%. You'll see on the balance sheet that there's various components of fund balance. Some funds are due to various purposes are restricted for specific types of expenses. There's also amounts that are assigned by management for particular purposes. You'll see there in the slide a little over $2 million of that, some of which devoted to IT equipment, salaries, furniture, and other purposes. So what that leaves you with is about $1.7 million in unassigned fund balance. That's fund balance that is not restricted in any fashion. That's again $1.7 million, a $350,000 increase from the previous year. And just to give you a measure of how that number compares to your typical annual expenses, that unassigned fund balance is 25% of your expenses. So it's a pretty healthy amount. Always good to have those kind of unreserved balances. And you'll see with the trend information over the past several years, that unassigned fund balance has gone up slightly over the past several years. Next area to focus on is what we refer to as your non-major governmental funds. This is, for all intents and purposes, the majority of this information relates to all your trust funds. So you'll see that at the end of the year, there was about 78 million in non-spendable trust funds. There was about $9 million in expendable trust funds, and then some other restricted amounts for various gifts, about $1.5 million. There's also amounts related to the DeFerrari fund for $1.2 million, for which management does have some discretion as to how those funds are spent. Some trend information on your non-major funds over the past 5 years. You'll see that that number really jumped from FY20 to FY21, and that is due to the fact that the investment markets performed outstanding in FY21. So there was about $20 million in investment income in FY21. That's why you see the big jump. In terms of overall revenues for the year, you'll see there your largest revenue source is intergovernmental grants, little under 5 million. Another big revenue source are contributions and gifts, 3.9 million. And actually your largest revenue source this year, at least, was that investment income of $20 million. You'll see some low numbers there for special events and fees and fines for services, lower compared to previous years. That's obviously due to the library shutdowns due to COVID-19. And then on the next slide, you'll see some revenue trends over the past 5 years. Want to just point out some fluctuations that you'll see there. The decrease from FY17 to FY18 primarily relates to the fact that around that time, the previous BPL foundation was sort of dissolving or pending dissolution. And so they ended up transferring most of their assets to the trustees in FY17. And then the large increase from FY20 to FY21, as we just said, does relate to the large investment income gains in FY21. Next, you'll see some expense information for the current year. Your most significant expenses for salaries and benefits, 3.4 million. Some other significant expenses related to books and materials, contractual services, utilities, equipment, and furniture. In terms of expense trends over the past several years, you'll see that expenses do tend to fluctuate from year to year. There's a couple different reasons for that. For example, in FY17 to FY18, there was a non-recurring expense. In FY17, the trustees sold a Norwood storage facility and transferred those funds to the city of Boston. So that was a one-time expense. And you'll also see from year to year, depending on the overall library budget, there can be some fluctuations in salary expenses, in addition to contractual services, furniture maintenance, things of that nature. Those can tend to fluctuate from year to year based on current needs. So overall, again, the audit went very well. I think overall the results for this year were very good. We're just about ready to complete the audit. There is the component unit for the fund for Boston Public Library. They have their own separate audit. That information is included in the trustees' financial statements. So we're just waiting for that audit to be finished, and then we can wrap up the trustees' audit as well. So happy to open it up for any questions that anyone has.
So any questions from the trustees? The financials were reviewed in detail by the finance committee, and we moved to a vote. But if anybody with any questions, I'm going to pause so everybody can find their mute button. More questions? All right, so I'm going to move to a vote. So can I get a motion?
Moved.
Second? All right, roll call. Pamela?
Lionel Ortiz,
Yes.
Arenas,
Yes.
Asim,
Yes.
Lau,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Bradley,
Yes.
Cronin,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Rosina Forey,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Hawkins,
Yes.
Linehan,
Yes.
Rush,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
and Westra.
Yes.
So moved.
Right, and then now a quick glance at the gift grants and donations to the library. This is a report out. This is a change that we did a few years ago where we had to accept each gift. So now we're just accepting the gift and then reporting out. So tiny. Can everybody see it well? So some of the gifts here are, I'm not going to read every single one, but these are some from the fund, which total for $2 million. Then you see the associates and their donations, and then the various groups including the friends of the various branches and their donations, and then the total here on the bottom. Any questions regarding gifts, grants, and donations? I want to thank everyone. I did kind of the finance and audit, but I want to thank all the friends groups, the fund, everyone who donates to the library. I know that, you know, during this time it's hard for everyone, but do really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Evelyn, and for that committee. We have new members that have joined the Finance and Audit Committee, new trustees, and I can tell you that they ask some tough questions, they dive into the numbers, and they're adding a great deal of value in these pre-meetings when we really go into the finance and audit report. So thank you to you, Evelyn, for your leadership, and to the members of this committee. And I too echo and thank the associates, the BPL fund, and all the many people who've given gifts and donations to the library to make it your library and our library a vibrant institution. We're going to move now to a vote for executive session. And this executive session is going to follow immediately after this public meeting. The purpose of the executive session is to discuss the cybersecurity under exemption 4 of the Mass Open Meeting Law. And we need to take a roll call vote to allow for us to enter into this executive session. So what's the protocol, Pamela? Do we ask questions or just go to a
Nope,
motion?
I will take a vote and do a roll call of all of the members to see if they agree to go into an executive session. After the vote is taken, we'll do the new business and public comment and then close the meeting out and enter into executive session and a closed session.
Thank you.
So I will do a roll call for you now.
Do we need a
Yes.
motion first?
Thank you. That's what I was waiting for.
So moved.
So moved.
Thank
Second.
Thank you.
And is it the same link for the executive session?
No, it is not. It is the separate link that was sent to you. It's on your calendar hold. I will resend it to you, Ben. Great.
Thanks.
All right. Arana Ortiz,
Yes.
Arenas,
Yes.
Asim,
Yes.
Val,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Bradley,
Yes.
Cronin,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Lucina Fori,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Hawkins,
Yes.
Linehan,
Yes.
Rush,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
and Westra.
Yes.
Okay, we have a unanimous vote.
Thank you. Is there, let me ask you this, is there any new business for discussion?
Yes, I have a quick new business. I gave a slide. Just wanted to give a quick Fellows Athenaeum Trust Fund Advisory Committee update. During the summer, the committee met and just want to give a little bit of a background. The charter of this committee is to launch programming at Roxbury branch for instructive purposes. This past summer, we went through the RFP process. We selected a number of programs in the realms of the arts, instruction, and health and well-being. Some of these are listed here, and then I'm going to do a plug. We were not able to spend all the allocations, so the committee will meet in the next couple of months. We're going to be launching a second RFP in the early new year. So please stay tuned with the Roxbury branch. We would like members of the public and organizations of the public to please submit proposals for additional programming for the second half of the year. And also, if you feel that you're not equipped to do this, do not despair. We do offer technical sessions to guide you through the process. So please stay tuned with the events at Roxbury Ranch. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
All
Want to
right,
move the next slide, Jay?
all right. So we're going to move to public comment, and I will turn it to Pamela Carver, our clerk, to manage this part of the conversation.
All right. I just want to make it a note as I reply to some, if you did put comments as the meeting was going, comments will not be acknowledged. We do ask that you, if you'd like to speak or ask your questions that you have, that you can do so in the public comment, but you have to sign up for it under the chat feature by saying you'd like to sign up for public comment. The first one is, if we could, I believe it was Chris Strunk was the first one, Jay. Everyone will have 2 minutes to speak. If you go over, we will tell you that you're at the 2-minute mark. We do ask that you wrap up quickly from a time standpoint.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, trustees. I am coming to you today about the current collection development policy and the issues that have arisen from the dramatic shift in the way we order books. The Boston Public Library has a collection of 22 million items. This new collection plan has been put in place, shifts the responsibility of maintaining, updating, and adding to this collection away from at least 40 librarians down to 4. This has caused severe problems with getting and maintaining the quality of the collection that the BPL strives for. And not only does this tarnish the reputation of the library as a great cultural institution, it does an incredible disservice to the patrons. Children's collections habits are very different from adults. They don't put books on hold, and they almost exclusively browse instead of search. So if a book isn't on the shelf, it leaves patrons sad, frustrated, or worse. I work with a lot of classes, and all of these collection habits are in mass force when we have 20 plus kids in the library at once. These kids do not have the ability to put items on hold or even wait for me to get the book from another branch because they might come once a month. I am frequently doing rapid book recommendations, and if I don't know what we have on the shelves, I can't accurately perform my job for these students. I bring all this up because this collection policy negates all of this. Series are being split across the system randomly, making it hard for patrons to find titles they want to read since they go to the library and expect it to be on the shelf. Since this new collection policy believes that people can just request stuff, the books are given to us seemingly randomly and therefore negatively impact browsing behavior by disregarding the needs of each separate community. We also currently do not have a good way to replace damaged materials. I've recently gotten rid of over 30 popular titles due to damage, and at this point I haven't been able to replace them. Lastly, this plan disregards the work that we at the branches do. We are frontline staff, and we are the first to see trends happening among readers. Collection development is something that every librarian is trained in, and branch librarians know the unique qualities of their patrons. We have seen how much we need community in the last 2 years. Why are we taking such an important aspect of our libraries and giving them to only 4 individuals who don't work in these communities? They say it takes a village. Why aren't we listening? Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Next, we have Cindy Dye. Cindy, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Before the pandemic, several months before the pandemic, I came to the trustees to speak about the Jordan collection, which is the historic children's materials collection from the Boston Public Library, named after Alice Jordan, who headed our youth services program for decades. The Jordan collection has been shunted aside and put into storage, suppressed from people even being able to see it. And worse, we have stopped being able to add things to it as they leave our collections. I've been fighting this fight for a while, and when it came time to make space on my shelf, I've been choosing things which are already in the Jordan rather than the ones that should be there. I'm facing a renovation of my branch, and I have a great deal of material that is going to have to go. And I would be happy if it went to the Jordan. I remind the trustees that if you don't hang on to old, you will never have historical. But more, the pandemic proved to me in so many ways that e-materials, as much as I love the Internet Archive, are insufficient. The scanned books, the books which are not designed to be e-materials and are only scanned, do not read well if you're trying to do a remote program. And there are every computer screen has different colors. So the artwork, which is so important in so many children's materials, simply does not show up the same way. I asked the trustees to let us hang on to this stuff. Let us keep it. If someone says there's not enough storage, let's find the storage. Let's have one less empty room at the McKim. But let us keep the stuff that if we wait 10 years, we're never going to be able to replace. Let us hold on to the old so that the children who are my children that I have been serving for 35 years, when they go to find out how we got here and they want to, let us keep this stuff.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
Move on to Claire Waldron, please. Claire, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay. So my name's Claire Waldron Gross. I'm the children's librarian at the Eccleston Square branch. And I'm also here to talk about the new collection strategy that was instituted last year, which involves selecting books on a system-wide basis rather than in service to the distinct neighborhood needs. And I would like to urge you to reconsider the strategy. It's devastating to our institutional goal of racial equity. What is happening is that instead of more books by Black authors and other authors of color, we are actually purchasing fewer copies of those books and just spreading them around more. And functionally, this means that they end up siphoned away from the branches that used to prioritize them. In other words, the branches that primarily serve communities of color. And those communities then see their home libraries used as overflow shelving, basically, for branches in more privileged communities, which alienates the people that we're all trying to bring into the library more, the vulnerable communities that are the subject of a lot of our outreach. Patrons deserve neighborhood collections that are carefully selected to maximize library resources to meet their needs, interests, and methods of access. That's why we have branch libraries. Every book choice for branches should be thoughtful and multifactorial. And the current strategy is incompatible with that. So I hope that you will consider this strategy and all of its implications. I truly believe patrons will be best served by a return to neighborhood collection choices made by neighborhood librarians. Thank you so much for being here and for all the work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Allison. Oh no, I'm sorry. What was? Yes, Allison Hahn.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Awesome. My name is Allison Hahn, and I'm here. I'm at the Brighton branch, and I've been at BPL for 3 years, 2 of which I have served as part of the young adult selection team with collection development. Before the current model, librarians were given carts to select books that they thought would fit well with their collection, be reflective of both who already uses and who is missing from their neighborhood library. Now that work is done by 3 people, at least when it comes to the young adult collection. A colleague and I are responsible for finding every new title that we think should be added to the collection, and instead of spending a few hours every month selecting books for my library, I now almost daily try and find titles. My colleagues and I go to great lengths to provide context and advice about the titles that we are recommending for purchase. We put notes on newly released titles in a series about what neighborhood branches carry those series, only to watch those titles get sent to a library that doesn't have any other books in those series. We put notes acknowledging the buzz a title is already getting on social media to encourage more titles to be purchased, only to later see 2 copies have been purchased, and those 2 copies have a long hold list, and now more copies need to be purchased, something that could have been avoided if librarians on the front lines had been able to choose this title themselves. We put notes talking about experiences we have heard from our colleagues about what types of book their neighborhood needs, only to later see that they don't receive any of the titles we recommend for their neighborhood. I love the work that I do. I love it. I tell anyone who will stand still long enough how much I love it, and that includes the collection work I am doing now, even though it can sometimes be frustrating and is a significantly larger time commitment than in the past. However, under this purchasing model, we are relying on the knowledge of only a few people to make decisions for the entire system. The current model feels like a model of what is missing. What is missing from the carts my team is making, what is missing from the shelves in our neighborhoods that the librarians there need, and who is missing from our library because they do not see themselves reflected in our collection. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have and, oh no, I apologize. I have
Lauren.
Lauren Peter next. Thank you. Okay.
Hi, my name is Lauren Peter. I'm a friend of the Roslindale Library. I would like to say thank you for the renovation of our branch. We're very excited to have it be open. I'm disappointed to hear that there's further delays. And I'd like to speak on behalf of our wonderful children's librarian and our new branch librarian that that we are very proud of the programming that they've done in the neighborhood, and we're very excited that they're going to have a space to do it going forward, and just encourage the trustees to think seriously about what you've heard today from all the librarians, because they are the people who are in the neighborhoods hearing from the patrons, and they understand the needs of the patrons. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Elizabeth Smith.
Hi, my name is Liz Smith. I'm the children's librarian at the West Roxbury Branch Library. But in the past, I've been a teen librarian. I've been an adult librarian. I've worked at Hyde Park, Mattapian, Brighton, and now West Roxbury. So I've been all over the city in very different types of communities. And the collection plan that is in place now has no regard for our neighborhoods. I can't buy the books that my patrons are asking for, and we're just being used as warehouses. No consideration is given, for many of these books when they're ordered. I can give you examples. There's a book, The Wolf's Curse by Jessica Vitalis. It was ordered for Lower Mills, Mattapian, and the North End. Now, what do Mattapian and the North End have in common that, someone would think these books should, be in those branches? They don't have anything in common. It's just alphabetically on the list, Lower Mills, L, M, N. And it happens with other books as well, with series. Allie has already spoken about how they have no regard for what branches own series. The latest book in a very popular Last Kids on Earth series, Last Kids in the Doomsday Race, it was ordered for the first 10 branches alphabetically. And the only reason Roxbury has it is because, they used to be Dudley. So in the spreadsheet the collection development uses to place orders, they're still up in with the Ds on the spreadsheet. And it's doing a disservice to our patrons. And it's a waste of money, some of the books that we've been receiving. I just got a book in that is a board book, which, if you don't know, they're the sturdy books. They're like cardboard pages, made for babies and toddlers so they don't rip the pages. Except this book is called Tell the Time, and it has little, it has a clock on it with little hands that you can turn. So that's a choking hazard, and there's a warning on the back that it's a choking hazard, small parts, not for children under 3 years old. So where am I supposed to put this book? Do I put it in with the board books so, somebody can find it and take it home with their baby? Or, a baby in the library could get at it and possibly choke? I don't think so. There's another book.
Thank you very much.
Okay, basically they're buying books that are wasting money. They're spending money on ebooks instead of print books. And, if you buy 100 ebooks and 1 print book, guess what? There's going to be more circulation for the ebooks. Thank you.
Okay, next, can we please include Felicia? Felicia, are you there? Felicia?
Felicia, please unmute.
Good morning. My name is Felicia Harris, the new children's librarian at the Roxbury Branch Library. I've worked in libraries for almost 30 years, 6 of which have been at the BPL. Previously, the Roxbury Branch had shelving for 74,000 items. We now have shelving for 33,000, and even fewer books since many of our shelves are empty. To my surprise, I opened the children's room this spring without a core collection. Entire sections were missing. After writing letters and assessments, I can now say we've finally been promised books. The problem of not enough books is not just a Roxbury problem. Mattapan was opened with half its collection, and the Adams branch is beside itself. This summer, Roxbury's 4 librarians asked if we could be allowed to begin ordering the books to renew the collection. Laura Ermshire, head of collections, said that collections would order for us. This makes no sense. There are 25 branches in a main library. It's mathematically impossible for them to do our jobs. Collections did not order the books. They told us to live with the few that they had already ordered and to use ebooks. The ebook disparity is a whole nother problematic conversation. BPL's collection problems have been mounting for years, and the racial and economic disparities have been glaring. Before I even got here, librarians have been speaking about this problem since before I arrived. The collection department over the years has systematically been taking the duties of librarians and not fulfilling it themselves. The library collections are now a mess. We have gone beyond the tipping point. Librarians and other staff have been meeting with the administration. The PSA has been writing letters. We've been talking to the collection department personally. And people have left the library in protest. It has only gotten worse. On June 25th, Laura Ermshire sent yet another letter for why her department can't fulfill its duties. I would ask our trustees to make a habit of dropping by libraries to talk to and introduce themselves to staff and the public. It is a shame that the voices of children, the elderly, of library staff is never present at any of these meetings.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, Felicia, but I need to move on to the next person for time's sake.
Thank you for listening.
Next, we have Ian Langone. Ian, are you there?
Yes, I just couldn't find the unmute. Thank you. So my name is Anne Langone. I am the children's librarian at the Faneuil branch, but while we are being renovated, I'm currently serving as the adult librarian at Lower Mills. I want to talk about the damaging effect that the collections policy is having on our book collection here at Lower Mills. And I want to urge the Boston Public Library to return to a policy that allows the frontline librarians who work directly with the patrons, that's librarians exactly like me, to select the books in our neighborhood branch collections. Now, at Lower Mills, we have a new shelf. It is a small space because we're a small library, but it is pride of place. It's right up front. It's at the entrance. It's valuable real estate. And we put new books there. All the libraries do. These are books that are new, that are fun, that are exciting. These are books that readers come in looking for. These are the books that you hear being advertised and being talked about on the radio, in the newspaper articles, reviewed in the papers. Now, instead of having a new shelf that is full of, fun and kicky and exciting books, we have a new shelf where books are being picked either by one of the 4 collection development librarians, or being picked by our vendor who we pay, or being picked by the algorithm that the library uses to pick books. And our shelf, our new shelf, our valuable real estate is now filled with self-published poetry and self-help books that are also self-published by unknown authors. And some of them are from vanity presses where these authors have to pay to get published. They are full of esoteric academic books, some of them very well reviewed, yes, but the very nature of an academic book means it's going to have a very limited appeal to the public, right? The Lower Mills new item shelf is filled with books that are not new at all, books that are published in 1992 and 2012 and 2008, books that the library even already has copies of in other branches, and either the algorithm or the collection development or the vendor decided that Lower Mills needs to have one too. The shelf is filled with duplicate books, right? So we get a new copy of something in April, that's great, and then we get another one in June. We get one in June, and then we get another one in July. And these are not like, it's not like everybody has these books. There might be 7 books in the entire library, and someone decided that 2 of those copies have to sit on the Lower Mills shelves. And so the Lower Mills patrons are not taking these books out. Our new shelf, our new kicky, fun, exciting shelf has become an overflow shelf for the rest of the system. Now I'm at that front desk, right? I watch patrons come in and they look and they look and they look, and one of three things.
Thank you, Ian. I'm sorry, I have to stop you
Okay,
there.
then let me just wrap up saying this. The patrons are not taking these books out. They're ordering books that they've already read. They're asking for, other authors that they like.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you.
Next, I have Stephen.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Hi there. My name is Stephen Toropov. I am the teen librarian for the new Roxbury branch. I started at the Roxbury branch during the renovation, and one of my first duties was to order what's called the opening day collection of new books for the branch as we reopened. One of the main parts of that was the graphic novel collection, which I knew was generally popular with teens and was going to be specifically popular with the Roxbury branch teens based on previous knowledge and demographic information and talking to kids. Since we have opened the Roxbury branch, and especially since the schools have been in session, I have had upwards of between 12 and 25 teenagers in the branch every day doing homework and browsing the shelves. That is oftentimes the graphic novel shelves are the most popular. Knowing this, I tried to engage with the new collection plan in an honest and forthright manner to try and work with the system, and I joined the graphic novel collection team. I still cannot, as part of the graphic novel collection team, ensure that my library branch gets the books that I get, gets the graphic novels that teens tell me they want constantly. I have a list of graphic novels, and particularly manga, that I have been told by multiple teen patrons, I want this, I want this, I want to be able to access it, I want multiple copies of issue 1, so there's still some here if somebody else has it out. I cannot influence that in this current system. I can talk to the rest of the team and say, hey, we should order a bunch of this, and then we can hopefully put 8 or 10 copies of that on the list with the hope that somebody in collection development will then decide that it gets translated, that it gets put to Roxbury as its location, but I have no influence over that. And the inability for me as part of this system, engaging with it in an honest way to actually provide service to my community means I believe it is a failure.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. Next, Jay, could you please welcome Akuna?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead, Akuna.
Okay, sorry, I'm on the bus. So I just wanted to quickly speak about, kind of add to this experience here that people are talking about with the collection. I think it was back in the last fall, we received a book for the adult collection called Terror in the Cradle of Liberty, How Boston Became a Center for Islamic Extremism. And it's a book that I would say is Islamophobic, and actually talks specifically about the mosque that's right up the street from the library, from the Roxbury Library. So because this was a part of the, this book came during the new collection policy, this was not a book I chose. It was sort of given to our branch. It was one of 2 copies in the whole system. I didn't understand why. And sort of at the urging of myself, I kind of sort of pled with collection development and neighborhood services to talk about this issue, about the book being there, and the fear of my many Muslim patrons coming in and seeing this book and feeling alienated and worse. That I was able to get collection development to agree to take it off of our shelves. I'm not one for banning books, obviously, but this is just an example of how the racial equity issue plays out with the collection development policy that we have. I'm here at the branch and I know who comes in, and I would never have chosen that book. And having to kind of gear up the courage to speak about it to colleagues, to white colleagues, I'm a Black woman, is terrifying because you often aren't believed when you talk about racism. I'm glad that they listen to me, but it shouldn't have to be that way.
Thank you, Akuna. Appreciate your comments. Next, we have, okay, I know you know who's next. It's Yvette. Jaro.
Oh, I had Alyssa up. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Alyssa's first. Correct. I just want to correct myself. Sorry, Alyssa Kajilik is first. Alyssa?
Good morning. Yep, can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Great. Good morning. My name is Alyssa Cadillac. I'm president of AFSCME Local 1526, representing the library assistants, clerical, and mechanical at the Boston Public Library. I'm going to focus my comments today on the agenda that was put forward. And I just want to go back to when President Leonard was talking about the cybersecurity incident that happened here at the BPL. What I want to put out is actually a positive on my membership that the frontline AFSCME members stepped up. They, as David referenced, they used paper and pencil to write down library card numbers. They then had to input all that data into the system. They came up with ideas in different ways and creating forms for us all to work together to figure out better ways to do this while we were down. And I also want to recognize our IT department, which is made up of AFSCME 1526 members who stepped up, who worked tirelessly to figure out ways to make sure we come back up online and then getting out to all of our branches to bring them back up online. So I thought it was important for the trustees and President Leonard made me raise this in the executive session, but I thought it was important in the public area to recognize the work that the AFSCME 1526 members did during the shutdown by stepping up, doing their jobs, going above and beyond to figure it out, making sure the public had what they needed to the best that they could. And again, bringing everything back up, bringing our systems back online. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Yvette. Go right ahead, Yvette.
Thank you. Thanks to all of you for your shepherding the BPL. I'm Yvette Jarrow from Friends of the South End Library, and just asking if there are any more details regarding the assignment of a project manager from the city for programming studies and in particular for the South End branch. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We will get back to you after the meeting. Next, we have Marlene. Greenhouse? Marlene?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay, great, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you as a member of the public. This summer at the South End Library, 2 members of the staff, Ann Smart, the head librarian for almost 3 decades, and Matt Krug, librarian for more than 7 years, were fired. A 3rd staffer, Carol Glass, was suspended for a week without pay. A new staff member had accused them of, among other things, violating COVID rules. This staff member had previously made accusations about colleagues when an employee at another branch. South End Library patrons who called the BPL and contacted them in other ways to express support and their reinstatement were told this was an internal matter. I hope my comments will inspire you to reconsider the notion that what happens to local libraries and their staff is not just an internal matter. Branch library staff everywhere in Boston have long-standing relationships with library users based on mutual trust and understanding. They count on the librarians who know them. They assist young adults struggling with life challenges when their families cannot help them. They welcome new immigrants who barely speak English. They assist the elderly and the frail, many of whom live in public housing near the South End Library. They help those struggling with homelessness, substance abuse, mental health issues. Under the leadership of Ann Smart, everyone was treated always with respect and patience. The Friends of the South End Library created many programs that brought thousands of new users to the branch for more than 14 years. Their popularity helped us raise $100,000 within a few months from local residents using the library and supporting it to help pay for the branch 2019 interior renovation. I could not have done this. I was president of the Friends at the time. Of Ann Smart, Man Krug, and the rest of the staff.
Thank you, Marlene. I'm sorry, I have to stop you right there.
one more sentence, please. I and many other patrons hope you will reconsider how to respect and value the importance of the relationships between staff and library users.
Thank you very much. Next and last comment of the day is from Sadiki Kambon. Mr. Kambon, are you ready? Sadiki, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Yes. Just very quickly, let me just say that this is an old subject. I'm the director of the Black Community Information Center, and we have a program, the Nubian Square Coalition. And essentially what it is that we have a problem that continues as it pertains to the Nubian Square Library name. Essentially what it was is I had received a correspondence in April 2020 inviting me to a trustee board meeting saying that the naming of the library would be on the agenda, but nothing would be decided at that time in terms of the name. At the last minute, then trustee board member Robert Gallery said, well, it would be unfortunate not to have a new name before the grand opening. So I suggest we in fact call it the Roxbury Library. Now, what's really disturbing is that Mr. Leonard had indicated in a correspondence that no decision would be made without community input. And so we're at a stage right now. Now, I hear this whole thing about the Roxbury Library, and Mr. Leonard said to accommodate those who want the Nubian name in there, the Roxbury Library, Nubian branch, that is not the name that the community wants. We have a petition out here. We want the Nubian Library name. And so what we're calling for is for the trustee board to declare the vote that was taken then null and void, and to give us the Nubian Library name, or at the very least, convene a session with the community to get community input, because let me just say, without, like I said, we have a petition, what have you, this community wants the Nubian Library name. We have Nubian Square, Nubian Station, and we want the Nubian Library name. And so, like I said before, I don't know how decisions are being made, because my understanding, based on what Mr. Lennon said, is that they've added on the Nubian Square branch. How was that determination made without community input? We do not want anything but the name that the community wants, and we're calling to the trustee board to do the right thing. Listen to the community in terms of what the desire of the community is, and in fact, make a determination that we will name it the Newberry Library name. And let me just say this, that I see you're going to have an anniversary celebration. Well, it won't be a celebration without community commitment and participation.
Thank you, Mr. Kimball. We appreciate your comment. Thank you very much. And that is the final of the public comments. Priscilla.
Thank you very much, all, for your comments, for your commitment, for your, some of you mentioned that it takes courage to speak at these, when we invite public comment, and thank you so much for making your voice heard. This is your library, and we appreciate all of your voices. We're going to now adjourn this meeting, and I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Pamela, you're shaking your head. We don't need a
I'm not
motion.
going to do a roll call to adjourn. It's okay to do.
We don't need a roll call to adjourn. Okay, so Pamela, any closing statements?
Other than we will just, anyone that needed follow-up, if you left your email, we will follow up. And for the executive session, this should be very quick. It's a very quick briefing. I appreciate the trustees hopping right onto that link right after this, and we'll start that immediately.
All right, to all, stay well, stay healthy, and we look forward to seeing you in your local branch and in the next couple of months on Zoom at our public meeting. Thank you very much.